Chapter 15. "Good morning," the lizard said. "My name is Reynold." He wasn't any of the Reynolds I had met the day before. "I will show you where you can wash." He took me down the stairs and led me into a sort of backyard where there were a number of stone washrooms. Reynold waited for me. When I came out, he said, "I'll take you to your friends. We can have breakfast while I tell you the plans we've made for you." We walked back into the building where I had slept. In a large room I found Charlie and Claudia already having breakfast. Those Thunderburgers again. The night before they had tasted a little like meatloaf. Now they tasted a little like bacon and eggs. "I've been telling your friend something about our island and what we'd like to show you," Reynold said. "There's a lot to see. I've made up schedules. We'll have to skip a lot because you're going to have to leave late tonight." I must have looked surprised, because Reynold said, "Please don't be offended. We'd love to have you stay longer. The reason we will send you home tonight is so that you'll be able to get home at all. You know, this is a floating island. Of course, we can't control when or where it will move, but we can predict it. At high tide tonight, we'll start moving, and by morning we'll be 100 miles away." Charlie asked a question. "Why doesn't this island ever float closer to shore than 10 or 15 miles? "It's the invisible wall," Reynolds said. "The same thing that keeps boats from bumping into us is like a big invisible bumper all around the island." Reynolds took a sheet of folded paper out of his pocket. This shocked me because he wasn't wearing any clothes. They aren't put together in the regular lizard way. Reynolds unfolded the sheet of paper. "In order to cover most of the important sites on the island, we will divide into two groups," Reynolds said. He was reading from the sheet of paper. "The Chicken Man and Claudia will visit the House of Ideas and the House of the Egg. Victor will visit the House of Plants and the House of Memory. I'm afraid that's really all we have time for in just one day." Reynolds folded up the sheet of paper. I watched to see if he was going to put it back in his pocket. I wanted to be sure I had really seen it the first time, but he just left it on the table. Another lizard came into the room. "This is Reynold," Reynolds said. "Reynold will guide Victor, while I, Reynold, will guide the Chicken Man and Claudia. To save time and give each visitor the widest possible impression of the important things on our island, Reynold will tell Victor all about the House of Ideas and the House of the Egg while they are on their way to the House of Plants and the House of Memory. Meanwhile, I, Reynold, will tell the Chicken Man and Claudia all about the House of Plants and the House of Memory while we are on our way to the House of Ideas and the House of the Egg." The lizards seemed to be really having lots of fun being tour guides. They were very organized and businesslike. Both of them were wearing what looked like wristwatches, but on a closer look they turned out to be flat pebbles taped to their wrists. Reynold looked at his pebble. "It's 7:15, time we started out." Reynold and I had a fairly long walk down the hill and through the city. While we walked, he told me about the places I would not have time enough to see. The House of Ideas and the House of the Egg were near the center of the city, in two of the big buildings we had admired from the plane. The House of Ideas was a big empty building with nothing in it. It had no windows and only one door. Outside the door, a lizard sat at a small desk. On the desk was a little wooden box. If a lizard had an idea, he could go to the House of Ideas and give an agama dollar to the lizard at the desk. Then the lizard at the desk would unlock the door for the lizard with the idea, who would slip inside and shout his idea. For example, a lizard might get the idea that lizards should not give advice to their friends unless they were asked for it. He would go to the House of Ideas, pay one agama dollar, and shout, "Lizards should not give advice to their friends unless the friends ask for it." Then the lizard at the desk would lock the door, and the lizard who had the idea would go away satisfied. In this way, Reynold explained, we have collected and kept safe all our ideas for generations. "You mean that you think all those ideas are still in there?" I asked. "Of course," Reynolds said. "How are they going to get out?" This struck me as a little dumb, but it didn't seem polite to say anything about it. The House of the Egg was apparently a place where they kept this egg that was sort of sacred. It seems that someone named Reynold, what else, had been a big deal on Diamond Heart a long time ago. He had invented the House of Ideas and the House of Memory and television and all sorts of stuff. He was almost like a god to the lizards. When Reynold the First had died or gone away, Reynold, my Reynold, didn't make it clear which, he left this egg and told the lizards that one day a stranger would come to the island and the egg would hatch, and they would have a leader who would do all sorts of good things, conquer the pods and everything. I stopped Reynold there. I wanted to know what he knew about the pod people. It turned out that the lizards all believe in the pod people. They thought that almost everybody outside Diamond Heart was a pod. Lizards and pods are natural enemies, Reynold said. I had sort of figured that out for myself. Anyway, when the egg hatched, the lizards would start to fulfill their destiny, as Reynold put it. They would become a powerful influence in the world outside. Everybody would see their television programs. The house of ideas would be broken open, and all the good ideas would flood out into the world, and it would be the end of podism. It was all going to start with a visitor to the island, and that's why they had everything ready for visitors and were so nice to them, even though nobody ever found their way to the island for years at a time. They never knew when it would be the visitor who would hatch the egg. I guess the egg, if it really was still hatchable, had some kind of baby super lizard in it, maybe like a crocodile or a dinosaur. Reynold told me that when the egg was hatched, the invisible barrier around Diamond Heart would start breaking down so everybody could come to Thunderbolt City and enjoy the House of Plants and the House of Memory. It all made a good story. Maybe it was even true, but I hardly thought Diamond Heart would get to be a big tourist attraction because of the House of Plants and the House of Memory, not if they were no more interesting than the two places where Charlie and Claudia were being taken. After all, one was just a big empty building, and the other one was just a place with an egg in it. I didn't see how those things could be very interesting. I mean, Diamond Heart has a lot of wonderful stuff, and I think anybody would enjoy a vacation there, but looking at monuments is always a bore. Whenever I go someplace with my family, they always stop and read those signs along the road. In 1852, so-and-so stole a cow on this spot. And it is just a spot with a few trees, maybe. I guess maybe my family would like to go and see the egg. It turned out that the House of Plants was very interesting after all. I really wasn't prepared for that after the description of the House of Ideas and the House of the Egg. The House of Plants was a big greenhouse all made of glass. It was hot and muggy inside and raining in places. It was like a jungle. There were all sorts of weird plants and trees. Some of them looked like nothing I had ever seen before. There was a diamond tree, that's his name. It had a trunk as clear as glass, and the leaves and branches were transparent too. It shimmered like diamonds and reflected rainbows of light. Yet if you touched the leaves and branches, they bent. They looked as they should have been brittle. There were trees with bright blue leaves and red trunks. There were plants that moved continually like dancers. There was something called the truth tree. It was a sort of dumpy, scruffy, dark green thing like a bush or shrub. It didn't have much of a shape, and the leaves were moldy looking. "This is the most beautiful plant here," Reynolds said. "Don't you think so?" "Yes, it's very nice," I said, trying to be polite. The truth tree shook its leaves and made a noise. "You lied," Reynolds said. "It does that whenever anyone lies." He was laughing. "Why didn't it do that when you said it was beautiful?" I asked. "Because I really believe it," Reynolds said. Truth trees are planted in all the front yards in Thunderbolt City. Before a lizard takes an idea to the House of Ideas, he tries it out on the truth trees. There were other trees and plants. Almost all of them had something special about them. The House of Plants was the most fantastic place I'd ever seen. When Reynolds told me that it was time to leave, I didn't want to go. I was starting to feel that all the plants were my friends. I mean, it was like the Hogborough Zoo, only much better. Reynold insisted. It was time to go to the House of Memory. We had to keep up with the schedule.